Welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast, where professionals in the attractions business can get tips, tools, and even a bit of inspiration.
Join us as we tackle some of the most important topics facing the attractions industry today and gain insights from some of the top leaders, creators, and influencers from the exciting world of theme parks, zoos, museums, aquariums, and family entertainment centers.
Because this show is created by Attraction Pros for Attraction Pros. I am Josh Liebman, Director of Business Development for Amusement Advantage. I help attractions understand and improve their guest experience.
And I'm Matt Heller, founder of Performance Optimist Consulting. I help leaders lead and work with attractions to increase employee engagement and retention.
Now sit upright, hold on tight, and enjoy the leading resource for attractions industry professionals, the Attraction Pros podcast. Kristina Wilson, thanks so much for joining us here today. We are really looking forward to chatting with you. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. How are you guys doing?
Hanging in there.
About the same.
About the same. So, Kristina, we have a lot of ground to cover in this conversation today. But first, can you just give us a quick background, a quick bio?
Sure, absolutely. So I am an attorney. I own a law firm down here in Miami called Simply Legal. So we have a boutique transactional firm here in Miami, Florida, and we service event centers and attraction venues down here, hospitality, hotels, things of that nature. I help them with their day-to-day legal matters, ranging from vendor agreements, event contracts, slip and falls, HR matters, drafting all sorts of contracts, and just really being a resource for them on a daily basis.
Cool. So can you give us a quick high level, because I know we're going to dive much deeper into a number of different topics here, but overall, what are you focusing on right now during this COVID-19 crisis?
Yeah, well, I think pretty much like any other small business out there, it's been interesting 3 weeks. We have shifted from helping our clients grow their businesses and looking forward to a big year to basically, being, having to adjust to help them with how are they going to keep their doors open? What do we do about staff? What is the deal with all these loans that are out there? All these events we had planned and these contracts we have in place, just really trying to be a resource for our clients and adjusting to this. Fortunately for me, our firm is very portal based. We have set up this flexibility. So for us, it was just kind of business as usual. When it came to that, we had to make some adjustments to obviously to accommodate our staff to be able to work from home. But luckily for us, our infrastructure was in place. And then we were able to just basically right from the start, focus in on our clients and helping them, react to how this was impacting their companies.
Yeah. So Kristina, can you kind of walk us through what that process has been like? Just kind of, again, kind of big picture. So I'm guessing some attractions are maybe dealing with it better or differently than others, or some you have to hold their hand a little bit more or explain things. So from an attraction standpoint, can you tell us a little bit about how that experience has been, sort of attraction to attraction? No names or anything, but just how that's been working with different types of attractions.
Sure. I think initially it was kind of like a shock to everybody's system. There was a lot of unknowns. People were worried. People were, there was no toilet paper anywhere. There's still no toilet paper anywhere. So they were kind of having that same knee-jerk reaction in their companies, like just the pure unknown factor, that question mark of what is next? What is this? What are we dealing with? And how is it going to impact us? Is this a matter of weeks? Is it months? What kind of impact is it going to have in the long run on our business? And so at the very beginning, as this was first coming over, and coming to the US, and we were hearing about it in other places, that anxiety was building. And so at the beginning, it was really just trying to calm nerves and say, okay, guys, let's not, think so short-sighted here. We're gonna deal with this, but you have a business plan. You have, a budget in place. You have goals, and we're going to figure out how we need to adjust to adapt to this situation and deal with what's in front of us. And then we're going to look again to the long run and how we're going to come back on the other side. So, at the beginning, it really was the safety of the employees. This was across the board, no matter what the size was. It was the safety of the employees and the staff and the customers coming into the doors of these facilities. And then it was turning to, the vendors that people work with and how those relationships are being impacted. So it was mainly focused on those areas. Now, as things have kind of we've all settled into this kind of working remotely situation. We've had, we'll get into it a little later, but a lot of financing options out there to help small business owners as to how they can keep their doors open and keep the wheels turning, even though it's at a slower rate. But that information has been really intense. It's complicated. It's new. Normally those kind of legislations, they roll out over several months. They're analyzed to death before they're implemented and adjusted. And here it's been like, pass it and let's go 1 week later. And then everybody's trying to learn about it along the way. So obviously we've been walking people through what's best for their business and talking about those different options that they may have, and really just trying to listen to what their needs are and find the right fit for them.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the contracts aspect of this. So you mentioned vendor agreements and event contracts are probably kind of all being thrown in a blender right now, I'm guessing, or just kind of a little bit haywire. Can you talk a little bit about, what businesses or what you have seen and been helping your clients with contracts that they have with their vendors and agreements?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, again, that's kind of the bread and butter of these kind of venues, the family entertainment centers out there, the attraction venues that are, mom and pop, that are family owned and operated, to the bigger guys out there. Most likely, many of those doors have been closed, or they're providing very, very limited, services to the community right now. So, you're dealing with vendors and customers that are probably approaching the attractions, venues and saying, hey, you can't, they may be trying to argue basically that they can't perform their services that they have contracted for. So they may be trying to use that as a means to cancel the agreement, due to impossibility or a frustration of purpose, which is the legal kind of term of art there. So in those situations, you have like venues of all sizes right now that have had weddings planned, birthday parties, corporate events, concerts being held, conventions, things of that nature. And like you said earlier, it's really been kind of like throwing all this stuff into a blender. So now what we got to do is we have to look to see what that event contract says. That's where we got to really kind of dive into that fine print that nobody ever likes to read. And there are certain clauses in a contract that really we want to pinpoint here. One of them is it's called a force majeure clause. And basically what that clause is, from the attraction standpoint, is like a reason why that contract can't be performed. So common examples of those are like acts of God, like hurricanes, wars, labor strikes, things of that nature. But generally speaking, pandemics, and really from all of the vendor agreements that I've reviewed over the past several weeks, and they have not contemplated pandemics in those clauses. So therefore, that means like contractually speaking, the COVID-19 is not an excuse for not being able to perform under those contracts. But again, these are kind of unprecedented times. You've got governments on all levels that have closed businesses and issued various levels of safer at home or stay at home orders, and only businesses providing essential services are allowed to remain open. Contract, the idea of a contract is it's language between the parties intended to clarify gray areas for the parties. So when there's an unknown, they can turn to that piece of paper and get a little bit of guidance. And in times or situations of uncertainty. And then, but the problem is this hasn't happened, and this is not contemplated here. So we're going to have to see how this unfolds and how it gets tested in the court system, which is going to take some time. But you're already starting to see signs of that, coming to the forefront. Another type of clause that you want to look at is your notice and your cure period. So some of these things, even though you're closed and even though you're not open for business to the public, there might be certain things that you could continue. Like for example, if you're an attraction venue and you're building a new web page and you have engaged a company to create that for you, that may be something you can continue to work on. But what you got to do is look at, you have situations in a business relationship. Maybe you're running short on funds, and you get served with that notice like, hey, I haven't received payment, and now you have 30, 45, 60 days to cure that. So we're telling our clients to basically look, and see when they get those notices sent to them, is it something that you're able to continue in some capacity, or is it something that you're not able to comply with, which would then lead to maybe a default in a contract. So you have defaults in contracts related to money and related to non-monetary things like failure to perform something. So then we look at, if that did in fact occur, what are your options as far as remedies? That party, that was entitled something or was supposed to get paid something, what are their remedies, and or how can you address it? Right now we're anxiety's at a high for many people. Everybody's unsure of where their paycheck's coming from, and they're just trying to keep their business open. So we're really trying to find middle grounds between any kind of disputes that have come up, to see if there's any way that that we can perform in contracts, or we can adjust those contracts to kind of keep everybody moving in the same direction. Because this is not an event where one party really didn't want to do business with the other party. This is something that impacted the entire globe here at the same time. Another big topic for attractions venues that I've seen, especially down here in South Florida, are deposits, and looking to see when they're refundable. There's been this debate as to whether you should give back a deposit to your client or to your customer, or if you should try to reschedule or reschedule an event for a later purpose. I think a lot depends on what that event contract says. Again, it's very important to look to that fine print of the contract there. And what type of event is it? Is it something that can be held at a later date, or is it like, something that won't repeat itself, like an anniversary or like a, celebrating, I don't know, that particular day. So that may be not something that you can reschedule for a later time. But again, you have to take this all, obviously there's a legal lens to look through, and then there's also the PR lens to look through, especially with attractions associations. You want to make sure that that your customer base is happy, so they're leaving you good reviews, and that you're working with those clients so that they're happy, and that they come back to your facility over and over again. One important note, a good piece of advice here is that you just can't just keep someone's deposit without providing a service at a later date. So if you have had a particular event scheduled for a particular time, and there's no refunds written on the ticket, that's fine, but you're still going to have to reschedule that event for a later date, or give them a credit to attend another event at a later date. You're going to have to give them some sort of compensation in that regard, even if that deposit is unrefundable. You have that same kind of situation when you have like Groupon out there, where people have prepaid for services, and maybe they bought those Groupons during low season. And so you have those periods of time where, hey, you can use it during this date to this date, but not during our high season when we're out there charging double for the same service. Again, it's going to be something to where you're going to want to offer that credit maybe towards the purchase of a higher priced item down the road, or, in the next low season. You obviously want to try to keep that bargain for exchange. They paid you for something and they have to get a service back in return. But on a higher level, especially, again, it's that PR component, that you may be contractually right, but it is, where you may be entitled to funds or entitled to a certain service, but you got to keep in mind out there that those are your customers, and the power of social media these days is very intense. And I've seen that kind of backfire on some companies, that took a hard stance without trying to work with their customers. And the other big thing that's coming our way, unfortunately, is kind of the nature of the beast here, is litigation. You really need to think about how you should address potential lawsuits, and are you able to head some of them off? Like I said, talking through with your customers, trying to come up with some sort of common ground result is obviously going to be better to try to keep some of those matters from escalating. And then also take this time to, how can you prevent this kind of situation happening in the future, so that maybe you can adjust the way you're doing business or how your contracts are drafted, to prevent some of these issues that you are already facing or that you may be facing in the near future. We're again just really advising our clients right now to take this downtime when they're not distracted with running the day-to-day business, to review all of their vendor agreements, and also their event contracts that they're using, their templates, their general releases, activity waivers, things of that nature, and use it as a time to make adjustments to those contracts for going forward, so that we can be more proactive in the future. And you really want to identify what rights and obligations you have under those contracts, and what kind of flexibility is best for your business, and what kind of protections you need going forward.
Thank you for all that, Kristina. I know there was a lot, but it was really important information. I think really valuable. I just have a quick question.
Sure.
Kind of knowing the legal side, how much grace and patience are you seeing? Like when there are disputes, everybody's going through the same thing, right? So whether it's a vendor or a client or an attraction or an individual, right? We're all being affected in some way. So how much are you seeing people taking a hard line and saying, no, you've got to pay this, versus, hey, we're all in this together. Can we kind of work together? Can we compromise? Like, I'm just curious how much of that you might be seeing versus, when we're not in the pandemic, people might be more inclined to take a hard line and say, this is business and this is the way it's got to be.
Well, unfortunately, what I have noticed during this last couple of weeks, you see the best in people and you see the worst in people. Fortunately, what I've seen more often than not is the best in people. So many of my clients and stories that I have heard are the latter, where they're trying to come to some sort of compromise or resolution. Everybody's in the same boat here. We're all trying to make it through this together. And find a way through the storm together, basically. So I see, a large majority of the venues trying to work with their vendors and trying to work with the people they have, that they've promised their venue to hold events there. So that's a good thing. But unfortunately, you do see some other venues that have still taken that hardline approach. They're making the papers right now. With canceling events and taking that hard stance that they're not refunding their deposits, and you can come, or you can risk your life and come to Miami and have your event, or it'll be held at a later date. And again, the big question mark here is, how are the courts going to how are they going to rule on a situation like that? Are they going to go with the hard stance of what the contract says, or are they going to look at again, you have to take it into context also, when the timing of when that went down, were there government orders in place that prohibited that business from being open, or were they already dialing back? Because before we all before we were all at safe at home, we were at safer at home. So it was like, okay, the gym is open, but don't, be within 10 feet of people. And now we're closing the gym, but you can still be here, but we're going to close some of these things that that you had access to under your contract, and now you no longer do. So I think as that threshold kind of goes up, that has to be taken into account as well. And it'll kind of probably lean more towards the kind of rescheduling or termination of that contract, and trying to provide for a later date for when that event could occur. But taking the hard stance of not refunding deposits and not offering an alternative, again, there's a bargain for exchange. In every contract, there is an offer and an acceptance of that offer. So if you take someone's money, you've got to provide them with something. So you can't just take it and say, I'm so sorry this happened, goodbye. There's going to have to be some sort of give and take with the venues.
What about the other way around? What have you seen for services that are already rendered where the agreed payment schedule would be that it was after the fact, and in between the time that the service was rendered and when the invoice was either sent or due, that the business shut down? What have you seen from that standpoint?
Yeah, that's another tough one. That one I'm seeing quite a bit as well. I mean, look, again, everybody's kind of in the same boat. We're all a little anxious as to what's happening and when is, life gonna, start getting, when are the doors gonna reopen? When are people gonna start going back to work? I think no matter what industry you're in or how big your business is, there's a concern with that right now, where, people are, either they've lost their jobs or their businesses have been closed. And so they're really tight. They're really being conservative with the money they spend. And yeah, there are obligations under there. Now, honestly, the advice that I give our clients is that if they're able to perform under the contract and they are able to pay their bills and they are able to keep, staff on and working and things of that nature, then try to do so, obviously, because not only are you really helping out that vendor that's, that did do his job or his or her job, and they performed and did their part, and now you owe them those services. But it's one of those things. I kind of advise, if you are in that situation where you're unable to pay for a service, don't stick your head in the sand. This is an unprecedented time. Pick up the phone and reach out to that venue, or to that vendor and say, hey, look, I know I owe you this money and I know you did your part, but right now I'm in trouble or whatever, and see if you can, if they're able to work with you. A lot of parties are working with each other right now on that. They're adjusting payment terms. They're delaying, they're extending, maybe if a client isn't, or a customer isn't able to pay, on the next month, they're adding a month to the contract, and they're, extending the term of the contract to make sure that revenue is earned by the venue. So there's a couple different options that you can do. And again, it's about being creative and trying to do what's best for everyone involved.
Yeah, and I would say, again, in that situation, the grace and the patience and the compassion come in too, right?
Yeah,
I'll be honest, I was in that situation. I had two jobs that I did before everything got locked down, and I was supposed to get paid, shortly after that. And, I just went back to that client and I said, if at all possible, even if it's a partial payment, that would really help me out. I know you're in a pickle too. And actually I just got one of those checks today and I'm expecting one later this week. So, I totally hear what you're saying, get on the phone, just talk to them. And, if they're able to do it, then you've got a leg to stand on, right? You've got something that you can go back to. So, I think that's really, really great. Just to talk it out, at least at first.
Yeah, I mean, I guess obviously there's a difference between what you're legally obligated to do per the terms of a contract versus what you can do as a human, and again, the humanity component of all this is one of the silver linings that's coming out of this situation is that, I've seen, people do things that were above and beyond, and it's just, again, like you said, just getting a partial payment that helps you. It doesn't hit them as hard. And, there's that, that client knows that you're working with them and they're going to be loyal to you, for the next project, because they know that you helped them when they were in a bind, and they're going to show that appreciation later down the road. And that's also very important to keep in mind.
Right. All about the relationships.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Kristina, can you talk us a little bit through some of the financing options that are available out there? Because I know there's so many things coming out. You even said, hey, let's pass a law and then figure out how to enforce it and bag it later. So
they're changing by the minute.
Right, exactly. So can you walk us through from your standpoint what some of those are and what people really need to know?
Yeah, so I know we're kind of hitting a national audience here, so they're not all Florida specific, but this has been pretty much occupying my time for the last several weeks. Ever since there was discussion of the CARES Act, as soon as it got passed, and then all the advisory guidelines that have been released in the meantime. So what I think we'll do is we'll kind of run down the big ones and what I see. Different, family entertainment centers and various attractions of different sizes, what they've been looking at and what their concerns and questions have been. Let's go ahead and start with the ones that are being offered by the SBA. The Economic Injury Disaster Loan, the EIDL. That's a loan that's out there. You don't apply with your there may be a couple lenders out there, but for the most part, all of the situations I've seen, you apply directly with the SBA on that loan. There's a website that you can go to. The SBA will determine the amount that you get as part of that loan. It's up to $2 million. The term on that loan is 30 years. And for small businesses, for-profit companies, it's 3.75% interest. There is a component of that loan that's a $10,000 advance, and it's supposed to hit your bank account within 3 days of you being approved for that loan. Actually, when you're filling out the application, I've helped out several clients filling out the application. They actually have you go ahead and enter your bank account information in there. So once that loan, if you demonstrate that your business has experienced an economic injury, and I think we're all hard pressed to not be able to demonstrate that right now. That basically those funds will go straight into your bank account. The thing about the EIDL, it's not forgivable. A lot of people are refining it or have the intention to refi it into a PPP or other loan that they acquire along with this process. The second one, which is the one that everybody's talking about, that's part of the CARES Act that got released a couple weeks ago, is the payroll performance loan that's out there. And basically how that, the payroll protection program. And basically what that is they look for a 12-month period of time at your average monthly payroll, okay? And what they do is they take that amount, and you're really focusing in on this. There has been a ton of back and forth, misinformation, a lot of debate as to what can be included in that payroll calculation. But our firm has taken the stance of we're keeping it clean. It's W-2 related payroll. And what you're going to do is you're taking that 12-month average, and you multiply it by 2.5 times, and that's the amount of loan that you're eligible for. The loan that they offer is a 4% fixed rate, regardless of your business type. There are no payments for the first 6 to 12 months of that loan, and then there's a 10-year term afterwards, okay? The interesting thing about this loan is that if you properly apply the funds that you're given by your lender, then it can be up to 100% forgivable, okay? So what does that mean? So basically, you've calculated your loan. You can use it to pay certain things that have been approved in this law. You can use it to pay payroll, interest on any mortgage, your rent, your utilities, and any other interest on debt that was occurred before the 15th of February. Okay, and so long as you limit it to those areas, and of the loan that you receive, 75% of it has to be geared towards payroll only. Okay, so you can use a portion of the loan that you're given towards those other areas, but a majority of the loan is intended to pay staff. That's the idea behind this law. It was to get people back working in whatever capacity they were working before. So it's to give them a boost through payroll. And if you use the funds for those purposes, then the loan can be forgiven 100%. So that's got, that's obviously an area of interest for a lot of the people that are struggling out there that are interested in that.
What about, sorry to interrupt you, but just curious about for business owners who might be compensated with a combination of W-2 and shareholder distributions, can it apply towards those distributions too, or is it strictly for W-2 salary?
Yeah. So basically on the small business, the one that was rolled out several weeks ago that people really started applying for this past week, that one is geared only for your W-2 people. Owner distributions are not included there. Your 1099, again, there was a lot of debate, a lot of back and forth, and the SBA and the Treasury kept releasing advisory guidelines as to what can be included and what can't. But we have been on several calls with different lenders and how they're implementing this. And it's been a really big area of confusion, but a vast majority of how they're applying this is W-2 payroll income. And there are other things besides you can use. So basically to calculate your loan amount, you're using all your salary, your wages, commissions, tips, or similar compensation, any funds that the business paid to employees for vacation, parental, family leave, medical leave, sick leave payments, group healthcare benefits and retirement benefits, and state and local taxes based on the employee's compensation, if that applies. So that's how they determine the amount of a loan. And then what I previously discussed, if you spend it on those areas, will determine if it can be forgiven. And you have 8 weeks to, once you're received the loans, to spend it on those areas. So the idea is to bring back that staff that's been furloughed and to get them working again, and get some money, in our society, basically. But to answer your question on independent contractors and these sole proprietors that receive revenue, that component of the CARES Act opened up today. And basically these are individuals that pay taxes on a Schedule C on their personal return, or collect 1099 miscellaneous forms, and they have to have been operational as of 2/15 of this year, as of February 15th. Any employees that you have or income that exceeds $100,000 a year, they're going to bring that down, so it's up to $100,000 on a salary, so that can be included as part of that calculation. But again, full-on disclaimer, this is very complex. Like I said, a legislation of this size normally gets passed through Congress. It gets rolled out slowly and implemented over time, and it gets debated and fine-tuned. There's guidelines that are released normally, and they basically essentially passed this law, and it went into effect a week later. So they being the Department of Treasury and the SBA and various lenders have been releasing guidance to the masses to kind of interpret what the intention behind this law is, what it means, and it's constantly being updated. And yeah, there is a little bit of learning by doing here, it seems. So we are adjusting and trying to keep our clients advised as to the latest and greatest, as it comes out. But two really big tips on the PPP and on these other loans. Some of these loans are depending on what you're applying for, you need to look to see how that loan is supposed to be used. And what we're telling our clients is keep it clean. Just keep it clean. For the PPP specifically, we've advised our clients to open up a separate bank account and put those funds into a separate bank account, because again, so long as they are using it for those purposes that we discussed, it can be 100% forgiven. So you really want to take that question mark away. You don't want there to be, you want to make it as easy as possible to justify that you've spent those funds that you received as part of the PPP on those areas. And the easiest way to do that is to just open up a separate account, put it in there, use it to pay your payroll, or a portion of your rent or things of that nature that are covered. And that'll really streamline that. It'll, streamline that process for you. You won't have to go through that argument of trying to justify where you spent the money. Another area of funding or financing that people should look at is state-specific options that are out there. Many states have them. I know in Florida, we have an emergency bridge loan here that is up to $50,000, and it is interest-free, but it needs to be repaid in 12 months. So, a lot of people are getting that as kind of a stopgap, and then they'll refi it or pay it off and refi it through another loan down the road. There are other options out there, grants that are being offered to the attractions or hospitality industries. There are small business grants out there. Facebook did a big push right at the beginning. They were probably one of the first people I saw out there offering grants to small business owners. And there are others. So, you just got to look and see what does your business do and what is it comprised of, and go out there and do a little bit of research, and you'd be shocked to see, the best is coming out of certain companies. They're really reaching out to try to help people in this time. And the important thing to remember is to do an analysis of your company, because you shouldn't, there are a lot of people that are just out there applying to all of these loans, and maybe the path that is best for you to apply to everything that's out there and then figure out what you want to do along the way. But you really need to look to see the circumstances of your company and your needs as to which of these options fit best for you. Because we have seen that one option isn't right for one person, but it's right for the other company. So that's something to keep in mind. And another issue that we have faced this week, really with the launch of the PPP, is we've had a lot of clients calling us that their lender has left them hanging. So I know that when this first rolled out, a lot of the bigger banks basically weren't ready for it. Or they, released portals that kept crashing and people weren't able to apply. And then when they finally got in to their bank, the bank was like, well, we're not taking applications anymore. So I can imagine that also is a bit frustrating for people out there, but there are lenders that are taking applications, and you just need to, keep looking. If your bank is not set up yet, be patient. There was a bit of fear at the beginning that the money's going to run out, but that's not the case. There's quite a bit of money out there. Congress is already talking about passing the second tranche of funding for this, and there are probably multiple levels. So people need to, kind of keep calm and assess their business, figure out what's best for them, and reach out to their bankers or their lenders. And if they are not accepting those applications, then to look for a lender that is accepting applications. We have a list of people that we're using that are taking applications, even if you don't have a bank account with that bank. So we're happy to help with that, with any venues that are out there that need that kind of assistance, or that really that analysis from A to Z of which of these options are best for them. It's really a case-by-case basis that you need to look at. So that's kind of it with the financing right now. I mean, there are also the traditional, more traditional routes, SBA loans or, lines of credit. But again, the lenders are adjusting to these times as to what they're putting out there. So
for the loans that are forgivable, or the components of loans at least, and I apologize if this question sounds a little elementary, but would that then be considered taxable revenue that you'd be responsible for at the end of the year?
Well, that's a great thing about the CARES Act. Look, the CARES Act, a lot of the things that the SBA has done in the past, or what they offered, the restrictions that applied to those loans, they've done away with a lot of them for the coronavirus reaction here. So they have the FFCRA, which is related to a lot of employment, but a lot of that law actually got embedded into the CARES Act with people that are eligible to receive certain benefits or how they're going to treat certain things. And there are things embedded in the CARES Act, again, that that forgiven debt won't be considered income, and other things that can benefit businesses right now, so far as like, deferring payroll taxes and things of that nature. So they're trying to help. This law is out there, and it was created to help small business owners and to help sole proprietors and independent contractors adjust to this time and to make it through. So you definitely need to kind of look into and make sure that the questions that you have for your attraction are addressed, whether it's with payroll taxes or tax credits. The other thing that is a big component of this CARES Act legislation, which hasn't really gotten talked about a lot yet, because it's still, everybody's kind of in that initial kind of reaction zone where they're just applying for these loans and trying to get them, is there is a whole component of the CARES Act. This bill is 880 pages, and it's not easy reading. It's referring to other laws and things out there that to define terms. So it's very complicated about how it's going to get implemented. There's a whole nother level of that has tax credits and tax incentives component to it. And why it's so important for you to kind of look at your business, look at the business on a case-by-case basis, is because, yes, under the PPP, you can get your 100% of that loan forgiven if you use it in accordance with the law. But you also have to look at, are the tax incentives that are part of the CARES Act that your company's eligible for, you want to look to see, do they outweigh what you received under the PPP loan? If they do, then you would not want to ask for forgiveness under the PPP. You would just repay it like any other loan. It's a low interest 4% loan. And you would just repay that loan and take advantage of the tax credits because they outweigh what you received under the PPP. So therefore, it'd be putting more money into that business owner's pocket. Though there will be instances like that. There will also be instances where the tax credits won't outweigh that PPP, which is why you want to make sure that those funds are kept separate and applied so that you can be eligible for the forgiveness, because then that's the route you would want to take with your company. But like I said, it's changing on a daily basis right now.
Right.
Yeah.
And Kristina, if you said that it's complicated, it would be really complicated for me, right? So good to have someone like yourself that can help discern that. So we've just got a few minutes left, and I wanted to know if you could tell us some of the great things that you're seeing that are out there. Ways that businesses are pivoting, or ways that people are utilizing their staff, in a new and creative way that maybe they haven't done in the past.
Yeah, and you know what? This has probably been the thing I'll take away from this experience. One of the big things, I have seen just some incredible things. When this first happened, everybody immediately went to, oh, I think I'm gonna have to furlough my entire staff, and everybody was very anxious about, like, basically just trying to, kind of put out the fire before it spread anywhere. They were trying to do damage control. So what we have really been doing with our clients, and this has been really kind of fun, because out of a crisis like this comes amazing innovation, amazing opportunities, and getting to think outside the box and looking at your business from a different perspective, through a different lens. And what we've really tried to do with some of our clients down here that basically had furloughed their entire staff and closed their doors, and they were worried that they were going to make it through 2 months, was how can you repurpose your business to adjust during this time? What need can you fill? Who can you help? And, how can you re-engage your staff or your customers? How can you keep them, keep yourself top of mind awareness with your customer base? And, one, it's been a self-assessment to those smaller venues, those family-run attractions, to really kind of look really hard at their virtual infrastructure. You see a lot of the zoos, they're doing, an hour with the pandas or whatever, and they're like, using the internet and using this platform to stay connected with their customer base and provide some some relief to those people that would like to, stay engaged and go to that attraction, but they're unable to. And so we're telling our smaller venues to really look at their virtual infrastructure, the importance of a website. Is your website strong? Is there information there for your customers and for them to find out more information, about your company and what you're doing? And inside that, looking at your terms of use, your privacy policies. You hear these stories about Zoom calls and people coming into the Zoom call, making sure that infrastructure is secured and protected, along with your client information that you may be collecting through portals or newsletters and things of that nature. E-signature capabilities. This is a time to kind of catch up to the times as to making things easier to navigate for your customers and for the people you do business with. As far as like e-signing contracts or waivers or things of that nature. But I also wanted to kind of talk about one of my clients in particular, who basically this was a great thing that they've done, and they've done multiple things. It's this Extreme Action Park down here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And, they have hundreds of employees that work for them, and they had to, furlough because they were forced to close due to the governor's orders down here, and also for the safety of everybody as things were shutting down. And, there is a program down here called a nonprofit called Handy. And what they do is they employ like underprivileged kids. They give them obviously teenagers and things of that nature, youth, and people give them employment. And there's a program that's set up through Broward County where Extreme was able to bring a chunk of its workers back out of furlough and repurpose them to help others. So they went through this nonprofit and through this program that the county has to bring them out of furlough, get money in their pot. They're staying busy, they're back to work, and they're helping others. So what they did was they turned the venue into a distribution center, a staging center to assist Feeding South Florida with getting food out to people that needed it. And they're using the Handy workers to get them reemployed, and then to turn around and serve the community in that regard to get, a lot of these venues have kitchens and food, restaurants, the food's going bad, or, it's got a shelf life and there's a lot of hungry people out there. And how can we make the best of the situation and help as many people as possible? And they really thought they made some quick decisions, thought outside the box, and repurposed their business and their staff to keep them moving. We have also had a staffing company that provided a lot of hotels with servers and bottle service and things of that nature. And basically the hospitality industry shut down and all those people were out of work. So that client sat down and thought, which businesses need help right now? Which ones are going full throttle and really could use some assistance? He repurposed most of his staff into helping actually the government process unemployment claims and things of that nature. And also with the businesses that were deemed essential, that were staying open to serve the public, like CVS's and the Publix's of the world. When they closed their doors at night, they were going in and providing deep cleaning services to prep and help those businesses get set up and ready for the next day. And he was able to bring back his entire staff and keep his doors open and keep functioning in an area he never thought he would be in. So, I think, it's really, you got to look to the core of your business and see what the need is out there and how can you fill that need one way or the other. And, and just trying to keep that connection, again, with your staff, keep people engaged. It's hard. What everybody's going through right now is really difficult, no matter what your education is or your profession or where you work. Working at home, remotely juggling with families and kids, and it's hard. And people have really, they crave that community. They crave to feel like they're a part of something, that team that they have at their office. I've seen a lot of our clients engage their staff by doing contests at home, just to keep them communicating and say, hey guys, we're still out there and this is temporary and we look forward to seeing you again soon. And it's had an amazing response from the people on the other end. So I just think it's a good way for a company to do its part, social responsibility, its corporate responsibility, and be a good employer, and be a good business out there for the community. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing those stories. It's really nice to be able to kind of take a break from looking at all the bad news and being able to just see, hey, what, you said that, out of the crisis like this comes amazing innovation, and we need to do more of that. We need to just keep seeing more of those stories going and keep seeing that innovation breeding. So thank you so much for sharing that.
And those uncommon collaborations is what I like to call it. It's just something that you never would have anticipated or even thought about before, but due to the nature of the circumstances, that opportunity presents itself, and it's a win-win-win for everybody. So
sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Kristina, if people want to get a hold of you or want to contact you directly, where would you send them?
Sure. They can contact me or any member of our team. My law office, it's called Simply Legal, and we're located in Miami, Florida. www.simplylegalgroup.com. Our office number is 305-858-6208. And I'm happy to speak with anyone about any of these topics and more in depth, or about how it applies to them. We're happy to help. That's why we're here. We're doing our part too.
Great. Excellent. Yeah, we'll include that contact info in the show notes. So thank you again so much for joining us and for sharing all of this incredibly important information. This was a very valuable conversation. We really appreciate that. And for everyone, for everyone out there listening or watching, thanks for being Attraction Pros.
Thanks for joining us for another great episode of the Attraction Pros podcast.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we'd love to hear your feedback. Feel free to drop us a line on Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn, and make sure to follow us on all the social channels.
And make sure you've subscribed to the show so you can get the latest episodes every single week. Also, if you're new to the show, be sure to check out all the great episodes and guests we've featured in the past.
And if you want to learn more about Matt and Josh and check out the best articles for you to operate your attraction most successfully, be sure to visit us at attractionpros.com.